I'd like to introduce Karim Lateef. Karim Lateef. Kareem, take it. Kareem, I believe you're on mute.
Okay. Back on. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? All right, give me 1 second. I'm sharing the screen. Give me 1 second. All right, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Can everybody see my screen? Can everybody see my screen?
We just saw it. Go ahead and pull it back up, Kareem. Pull it back up.
All right, it's up now. Can you hear? All right, it's up now. Can you hear? Can you see it?
It's up there.
It's okay, awesome.
Okay, awesome. Good. Sorry about the technical difficulties, guys. I promise you it's not going to be a Teddy Riley night. But thank you for the introduction, Freddie. So just to kind of jump into it, I know we don't have time. We have a 4 hour, we maximize that time. This is what I call my intent, and basically this is my intentions to carry you through the day. So I'm going to give you a little introduction of myself. Not going to talk too much of myself. I know you've been to panels and conversations where it's kind of like you know showering and then you get a little bit of time. You got to ask them questions. Kind of ask them questions. I want to make this more of a learning session for you guys, and I want to learn from you as well from your questions. Talk about learning the lines of passion and career, navigating the traps of adulting in the corporate world. I'm using the POT as a life compass. I'm gonna get into that. That's something I created based on the SWOT analysis. If you're any business majors, business professionals know what the SWOT analysis is. Leveraging your voice and taking up space. Why that's important. Giving you a real life example of master something that Freddie mentioned earlier. And then what's in it for me, which is kind of where I want to leave you guys, is what value I think you'll get from this presentation. I hope that you take presentation. I hope that you take when you leave. And then the Q&A. And then the Q&A. Shy with your questions. Don't be shy with your questions. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? See the screen? Hello?
Yes, Kareem, we're good. Yes, Kareem, we're good.
Just a little bit about me. Just some of you guys know me through like my professional world, like my professional world. You may not know a little bit about my background, and I want to give you this background on myself. You know, 3-minute background on myself. Some of the decisions I made, some of my past, some of the decisions I made, some of my past, some of the decisions I made with my career, some of my passions I made with my career, some of my passions. You guys probably all know Selma, Alabama, in terms of civil rights. All know in terms of civil rights. The impact it's had on civil rights. I was born there, very small town, 30,000 people, but I've always had a big city mindset. So once I was of age to travel and move on, I moved on, and throughout my life, I moved to 14 different cities. And most of those cities are some of the biggest cities in the country, from the West Coast to the East Coast. So I always had that appetite for more culture. No disrespect to small towns. That's still a part of my life, a part of my heart. But I had this appetite for just culture overload. I was born creative, coming from a tough background. I figured out ways to kind of have an outlet, and I found my outlet through art. So art kind of followed me throughout my entire life. If you follow me on Instagram, as Freddie mentioned earlier, you'll see a lot of that portrayed in a lot of my images. Visual memory, being an artist, I feel like I was a pretty decent student, but a lot of my success in school was everything. Anybody that's learned in the United States, a lot of your learning goes with more regurgitation versus critical thinking. So really just memorizing everything and spitting it right back out to the teacher. I was really, really good at that. But one of the things I really enjoyed was around high school and on, I started to really develop a passion for music. Not wanting to be a rapper or anything like that, but just loving music, loving the artist, looking at music more from like an anthropological kind of standpoint. I wanted to understand who the artists were, really tapping in. And through that, I just kind of found myself into culture. So most of the jobs I've had, with the exception of a few jobs or even businesses I've created, have all been more so culture based. So I would say my travels around the world from my college years through my professional years, I've always kind of landed in cultural centers during key moments. So during college, I was in New Orleans during the No Limit days, during the rise of, I'm sure, I hope you guys are watching the No Limit Chronicles. You can kind of see the impact, P has had on the culture, but I was there breathing and living that during that time when I was in New Orleans in college. Then I moved from there to Philly, and I became a very integral part of like the Black Lily neo soul kind of movement there. And then from there, I moved down to DC. I just happened to land in DC during Obama's inauguration. I spent the full time there for the most part of his term there. And it was a lot of good energy, very jovial mood in the city, a lot of culture during that time. And then I moved from there to ATL, where I'm at now. And I basically have joined this movement here in ATL to kind of help do my part and contribute to this new renaissance here. And fast forward to where I'm at right now with Martell, working here in between New York and Atlanta. Throughout my life, if you came here today for the secret sauce of how to balance your passions and your work career, I got a confession. I don't really have a secret sauce. I don't have a secret for you. What I can tell you, my approach to finding balance is more so around blurring the lines, making your passion and your career kind of intertwine to the point where you don't really, sometimes from an outside looking in, a person that looks at you, they can't really tell if you're working or playing, because your passion, whether it's music, whether it's, art, whether it's dance or whatever it is, you figure out a way to plant that passion point into your career, into your work, whether you're working a 9 to 5 or whether you created your own business, is centered around to some degree your passion, and your passion is informing your decisions. So I felt like this quote here kind of sums up a better job than I'm doing right now in terms of explaining this point. So this is a quote I definitely want to leave you guys with from this page: is the master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his or her mind and body, his information and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he is working or playing. To him, he's always doing both. So the pictures you see to the side of this presentation, this is my life. So I figured out ways to incorporate my love of DJ culture into my job working within the world of wine and spirits. This is not something new. Like from the beginning of time, when I started, whatever role I played during that time, it was a low-level role. I figured out ways to interject DJ culture into the conversation. And those conversations led to external and internal projects. You see other pictures of food and music and, just culture. There's just like conviviality, people getting together and enjoying themselves. These are all aspects of my passion points that I carry with me inside and outside of work, that I find ways to be, that's always non-negotiable for me. I always figure out ways to interject that into my career. You move on to the next slide. Now, this is important because I know you're probably wondering, yeah, that's cool. You got a cool job and, it's easy for you to say, and it's, but one thing I will tell you, everybody has this opportunity for the most part. But what it comes down to is like what you're willing to sacrifice, because there are going to be times where you may not have, you may not be able to, rush into the opportunity that you want at the moment. You may have to work, but you may have to take on side projects. You may have to volunteer in areas that tap into your passion. You may have to take on, like, for example, one of my first jobs was working at a music store, Sam Goody. I did that job for 2 years when I was in college. I made no money. I pretty much like did it just for the enjoyment. And I took on other jobs whenever I could to help, compensate for some of the financial responsibilities I had. But I just I had a non-negotiable life in terms of decisions I made, in terms of making sure I always lean into my passion. So there's always a point in our journey between childhood vision of whether we're going to abandon our childhood passions, whether we're going to abandon our ideas, our love for whatever it is, whether it's drawing or whatever it is. If you don't have that internal or external support, a lot of times you're going to end up abandoning that to take on this, what we consider adulting, where you get your 9 to 5, you get your house, you get your picket fence, you have your children, you get your car, You enter into adult conversations, or everything else that you used to do, that you used to love, to keep you up at night, that you're excited about, you kind of put that to the back burner. And then you do a little bit of it, but you never talk about it because it doesn't make sense to talk about it, because everybody that's an adult is talking about adult issues. So I just encourage you, and I'm gonna get into this on the next slide. I encourage you to put things in your life in place to hold yourself accountable to making sure that you don't slip into this common phase that we go through of adulting, where you're abandoning all of your passions. Because a lot of times, if you abandon your passion at that point, it never catches up with you with your career. And then you become, later on in life, you start to have regrets. So I think that Kanye did a good job of kind of touching on this in one of his lyrics. He said, got treasures in my mind, but couldn't open my own vault. My childlike creativity, purity, and honesty is honestly being crowded by these grown thoughts. Reality is catching up with me, taking my inner child and fighting for custody with these responsibilities that they entrust in me. So again, it is extremely important that, to some degree, as much as you can, again, I'm a realist. I know that we all have life circumstances and we all can't have this perfect job. And our job is by no means perfect. None of the business I've created have by no means been perfect. But one thing I will say is that, to some degree, I have made sure that I've been non-negotiable about carrying my passions with me. And it may not have been reflected in the jobs I've had, but it's been into who I surround myself with. If I'm not working in a job where I'm able to, exercise my passions, I form groups outside of that. So most of my friends are DJs, or in the music, or in the art, so that I'm continuously having that conversation, because these conversations and these words, manifest, into real things. So it's very important that you create this ecosystem for yourself. So the next page, to help you, because I'm not a talker, I just want to make sure that I give you guys like real tangible tools that you can use to help you to make this switch, if you haven't already, or if you have made the switch, to sustain it. So what I call this the POT. So the POT, if you're familiar with the SWOT analysis, the SWOT analysis is analysis that was created, I think, back in the early 1900s. And it was basically a tool that was used by most businesses to assess their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And they used that analysis to create strategies, like marketing strategies and business strategies. So I've used that a number of times, from grad school to undergrad, and even in my career now. But what I've taken is that concept and pulled out what I felt will be relevant for creatives and people that are looking to transition into a world where they're living their passion and monetizing their passions, or figuring out ways to better balance their life. So I've designed this concept called passion, opportunities, and traps. So with your passion, if you haven't already reclaim your passion, or you still trying to figure out what that passion is, I have a tool here with 7 questions I feel that you should ask yourself. So one question is, what fun activities or occasions do you get lost in that you lose track of time when you do it? Think about that. What do you do? What do you love so much that you just lose track of time? You forget that you're even doing it. What can you talk about for hours that when you talk about it, you light up? What did you love to do as a child or a teenager or a young adult? If you could be remembered for 3 things after you die, what would that be? Not to be, I know that's a dark question, but still, it's something very serious to think about. If you were financially secure, what is working well for you in your current life and career? What do you find fulfilling, meaningful, enjoyable, and important? So ask yourself those 7 questions, and really be honest with yourself and write down your answers. And then what I want you to do after you've done that, I want you to think about opportunities. I want you to think about where are the opportunities in the world, in my immediate circle, in my family, within my friends, in my company. Do I have to build a company, start a company within my company? Are there projects I could take on? Are there extracurricular opportunities that I could take on to kind of help me to invest more of my time and energy to my passion, to the point that my passion may become my full-time focus? So some of these questions you should ask yourself to identify these opportunities around you are there any further skills, external resources, jobs, non-paid or paid, or connections you don't have that, if acquired, will really help you invest more time living out your passion? Are there opportunities that match your passions within your company or social ecosystems that aren't currently being exploited or fully maximized? Are there areas of your current job or business that you can streamline or eliminate to create more available time to explore your passions? How do you optimize your 5 to 9? We talk about the 9 to 5 a lot. How do you optimize your 5 to 9? Your 5 to 9 p.m. or to some people 5 to 9 a.m. Who knows? And how do you optimize your weekends? What are you doing in your weekend to commit time to explore your passions? Are there any influential people, potential supporting communities? Like, I'm not even sure if this still exists, but at one point meetup.com existed and I did participate in that. But that was basically allowed you to organize groups based on your interests and your passions and other, business, personal interests. I'm not sure if that still exists, but I just put that in because that's a great concept to apply to your life. Facebook groups, podcasts, are any of these worth engaging or keeping an eye on? Once you've gone through this framework to identify your opportunities and ask yourself real questions, and you're starting to match up your passion with these opportunities, the next thing for you to do really is to keep in mind the traps. These traps are put in place. These are barriers in life that could really throw you off your path once you've identified this strategy for yourself. So the traps will be, identify any external obstacles that are standing between you and your vision. What are the obstacles existing in your professional or private life that may prevent you from achieving your targets? Is there a person that's in your life that's a negative, they talk negative all the time about your passion and your ideas? They downplay it. They try to make it small. And that person is influential to you. Maybe it's your parents. Maybe it's your significant other, whoever. Just making sure that you are aware of that trigger to throw you off base. Also, are you so comfortable in your career and personal lifestyle that you are less likely to explore your passions or bet on yourself with new projects? This is one that I've struggled with from time to time. I've been in situations where I did, get comfortable with the paycheck or, comfortable with the title or status and things like that I started to put less and less time on my passion, which may require, me to suffer a little bit, in the area. But, that's something that I think is something that's personally impacted me. Are you discouraged by a lack of conversation with similar minds or a lack of support for your interests on personal passions? Kind of touch on what I just said. Don't be discouraged if you're not having these conversations with a bunch of people. Really, in this situation right now, it's really more about the power of one. That one person can really transform your life and really help you to bridge that gap between your passion and your career. It's not about the number. I know with like social media, we tend to accumulate relationships. We tend to get, celebrated for having 10,000, 15,000 followers. And then most of those people probably won't support your passion. They just like the look, but once you get down to that core, 1 to 20 to 50 people that can really help you and really support you, that's all you need. From there, it amplify. From there, you're in your passion, you're in your path. Are you too busy or financially challenged to explore your passions? Again, that kind of ladders back up to what I just said. So I have a couple of just thoughts I want to leave you with. Without heart or passion, you'll never reach your full potential. Aim to avoid choosing a job for the money. Choose it based on how well it aligns with your personal passion and your ambitions. If the employment options aren't available, seek out learning, networking, or independent opportunities that allow you to further explore and lean into your passion points. Inspiration and opportunity usually finds you while you're doing the work and creating, not before. And just stay inspired by voicing your passions to your family members, to mentors, to colleagues, someone who has embarked on a similar endeavor. If you're around people and they're, making your passion feel small and taking you away from who you are in your essence, then you're around the wrong crowd. So that's more of a self-assessment you have to make. But I just encourage you to take control of your ecosystem and to build your ecosystem in a way that it supports this journey that you're about to enter on, if you're not already on it. And if you are on it, to help sustain it. The last thing I said was about, voicing your opinion. Voicing your ambitions and your goals and your dreams and your passions. That is very important. And 2 quotes I want to put in here, I want to mention to you guys that kind of stuck with me and kind of helped drive this point home is, I always think that the most important thing is to feel like you belong in every room you're in. I'm going to get to that, why that's important. But taking up space means finding the strength to believe that your vision, your voice, your personal brand, your visual expression of your passions and interests are valid. Again, it is very important that you, and I don't care if it's 1 or 2 people, it's very important that you design your ecosystem around your future vision of yourself, how you want to live out your passion. Do you want, to build a dance school or whatever it is that you want to do? It's important that you align yourself with people that are not going to belittle that goal. And it's important that people know that that you have these passions. If you're a person that never shares it, no one knows to even support you. So one thing that I've done, if you follow me on Instagram, I share all my passions. So I have a passion for art. So whenever I travel, whether it's with work or personally, I'm going to find the art district in that city. I'm going to take pictures. I'm going to try to connect to the artist. I'm going to post it on my Instagram. I love community. I love speaking like I'm doing now. I love speaking to everyone from youth to adults. So I'm going to show that. I'm going to share my learnings that I have. Like you see one example here on the side. I work with many artists like, Freddie said. I'm going to share that. I'm going to share all these passion points that I have because, again, it makes it very clear to people that talk to me where I stand and what I love and what I, what awakens my heart. So when opportunities come up, they're going to think of me, whether it be a job or whether it be a partnership or whether it be a extracurricular activity that doesn't require any money or anything like that. But my ecosystem is set up so that people are very clear on what I love. So they're always going to be keeping me front and center and top of mind when these opportunities come up. So that's a very key piece in blending and blurring the lines between your work and your passion points. And this is just an example of what I just said. So as I mentioned before, I started off working in a record store and didn't make any money. From there, of course, working in a record store, I started to meet a lot of, let me take a sip of water, sorry guys. So from there, I started to meet a lot of like record execs, promotional teams. So from there, I just talked my way into getting like a college artist development rep job with Def Jam and Bad Boy and Arista. So I started to get a lot of experience, in that area and started to meet the artists and things like that. Again, continue on to talk to people, share my passion, share my love. I started to take on different speaking engagements, just sitting around in focus groups for like the Recording Academy, which decides on the Grammys. Then I just continued to like keep in touch with everyone I met, from the DJs to their managers to the person carrying the crates. I don't care who you were. If you were involved with music, I was going to become your friend. I was going to touch base with you. I was going to keep in touch with you. Make sure you knew what my passions were. And from there, it kind of landed me when I got into the alcohol beverage industry. When the opportunity came up to present to create a show that was part of our marketing strategy called Master the Mix, the first person that they came to help steer that, engineer that from the company side was myself. So because they knew that I had this passion for DJs and music, so I was able to again blend that passion for DJ culture, for music, into a career. So that's very important, So I hope you guys can see how I continue to use this method throughout my trajectory of my career. So a couple of things that, I know I said a lot, but a couple of things I want to kind of leave you guys with is taking this journey and this exercise. It really gives you a clarity of purpose. You're bombarded with so many images and so many impressions from Instagram, and sometimes you end up, comparing your lives to other people's lives. You take on their purpose; they're not your purpose, but you're trying to compete, and you end up taking on their goal and their mission. Or you work for a company, and you become such a great employee that you help to build their dreams and you fulfill their purpose and their passion, and you lose your own. So going through this exercise is really about identifying your purpose, your passion, and clarifying it. It sharpens your brand, your personal brand identity. As I mentioned to you earlier, if you go to my Instagram, it's very clear on what I love to do. You will see, my work, but you can't really necessarily, if you're on the outside looking in, you cannot really tell if I'm working a plan. If you look and you see me doing what I do, you might think I'm just hanging out, but I just figured out a way to blur the lines. It amplifies your voice. So it always, again, it gives you a reason to be in the room. People want to hear about your passion. They want to hear you light up. The ability to be more decisive in your career and life choices. It helps you to identify and find your tribe. It helps you identify those people that will be supportive of you and not, making you feel small or, trapping you into this adulting concept. monetizing your passion and talents on your own terms. It really helps you to do that. And it helps you to get that personal breakthrough to more of that unlimited potential that you deserve. So yeah, I know I just went through a lot of information. I wanted to get done with this before 30 minutes was up, so I'm right on time. So I want to open it up now to any questions that you guys may have, or comments or feedback, or any personal stories that you may have, so we can all kind of learn together. I'll turn it over to Freddie and Linda.
Hey, Karim, this is Mina. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. We have a few questions from the Twitch. So the first question is, what's your biggest personal accomplishment, and how did that help shape you as a professional?
My biggest personal accomplishment. Thank you for the question. My biggest accomplishment would probably be while in college, assembling a few of my friends and actually creating and financing our own MC battle tour. So that was something that a company did not pay for. That was something that we were broke college kids, and we kind of got together and we wanted to highlight these emerging artists in New Orleans and around the country and give them a platform. And we were all inspired by the early days of hip hop, the battle culture. So we created this concept called Mic Check. We created a company and we funded it, and we took MCs across the country. We took it to 5 different cities across from West Coast to East Coast. That was something we did as college students. And actually, the head of Cash Money Records, Mac Main, hopefully he's still the head, I'm not sure. But at the time, he was one of the artists that performed in our battle. So that gives you a little bit of our history. So yeah, that was one of my biggest achievements, because it was something that we did with our own hands, our own mind, our own money. And it was a way that we combined our passion. We monetized it to some degree, a little bit, and we were able to live it.
Awesome. So we can go on to the next question. That was an awesome answer. So I guess, how would you describe your own personal brand? I know a lot of people, in their professional careers, it's kind of hard to, I guess, brand yourself, because it's hard for people to kind of separate the work and the passions, I guess, even via social media and just in general. So I guess, how would you describe your personal brand?
I mean, I know this is gonna sound very cliche, but I hate using it, but I haven't thought of a new term yet. But I consider myself to be a Renaissance creative, because I just respect movements. I respect movements. When I say movements, I don't respect just New York movements. I don't respect what's going on in Atlanta. I don't just respect what's going on in Chicago. I respect people that come together and they push culture forward, and they stretch the imagination, and they disrupt people, and they make people stop, and they make people angry, and they make people upset. They disturb their comfort zones. I'm obsessed with that. I'm obsessed with all of the cultural movements, from the Harlem Renaissance to it's so many. I can't even name all of them. It's so many of them, but I'm just very obsessed with studying culture from a more anthropological standpoint. And everything I do is from that particular lens. So whatever decisions I make, however I manifest my passions into a job or work, I do it with the purpose of disturbing the peace, of disturbing the status quo, of doing something totally unique that challenges other people and inspires them to also follow their passions. So there's always going to be a milestone, for me. At least I try to do that.
Cool. Let's see what the next question is. The next one is, what advice would you give to someone who just started their business, but they keep running into losses?
I would say basically, in that case, if you start your business, I would encourage you. I'm not sure if you've done a SWOT analysis, but I would do a SWOT analysis first of all to kind of figure out, to diagnose what the issues are. The issues may be deeper than the kind of the surface issues that you're facing with your business. So once you do this SWOT analysis, where you identify your strengths, that you have as a company, you identify your weakness, your blind spots, and maybe that may require you bringing in some external help, because maybe you have blind spots that you can't see. So maybe that is like doing a survey or something like that to identify, maybe there's some holes in your customer service, or maybe there's some holes in certain areas of your image, how people perceive you. Because remember, with your company, with your brand is not what you tell people it is. Your brand is what they tell their friends. So it's very good to understand how people are talking about your brand to other people. So doing a survey, you can figure that out. So it's good to identify those blind spots, their weaknesses, and then figure out what the opportunities are for you to kind of, amplify the strengths that you identify with your company. Maybe you are doing a lot of good things right with your company. So maybe there are opportunities for you to amplify that, and then there are areas where you can kind of minimize the weaknesses that you've identified or address them head on from the surveys or internal focus groups and things like that you've done. And then the threats, like watch out for, some of the threats so that you don't repeat them. Like it could be, a threat could be, anything from, legal action being taken against your industry or your business. And the way to get around that is to start to participate in legal in politics, like making sure you show up at the city council meetings and stuff like that and understand what laws are coming down the pipeline that might affect your business so you can get ahead of it. This takes a lot of work, you know what I'm saying? But I would just encourage you from foundationally to do that SWOT analysis first.
Definitely. Let's see. And trying to answer all the questions on Twitch. The next question that somebody has is, I guess, what are the everyday challenges that you face in your profession?
Everyday challenges I face in my profession, in my industry in general, is just lack of diversity of thought, lack of diversity of ethnicity, microaggressions, and we're normally I wouldn't talk about this to this degree, but we're in a time now where this is at the forefront. So I really want to bring this up because a lot of people that's in my position as a person of color, and this is not even just with my company I work for. This is just in general. This is just in the industry, just people. There's a lot, that we deal with as people of color. So that's some of the things that I personally face on a day-to-day basis. The other things I face is more so some of the things I mentioned in this presentation, like making sure that, I'm staying optimistic, because it's so easy. Like when you look at the environment we're in with COVID, in the George Floyd protests and things like that, it's so easy to get discouraged and to really like lose yourself in all the noise around you that, you become depressed. So like I try to focus on my mental health, give myself affirmations and remind myself my purpose and why I'm here. So, those are some of the issues. Those are some of the challenges I face day to day.
Gotcha. I guess that leads into the next question too. So how do you see the industry changing in the next few years?
I see more direct to consumer with everything in our life. I see like a lot of the middle people being removed. And I see that from everything from fashion to, I don't know how, this would affect my industry, alcohol beverage industry, because we do have like the laws that are in place from prohibition where we definitely need that third tier, like wholesalers. But if you order a product right now, notice there's like delivery service that you can just order directly. There's like small companies that I've seen that have developed that you can like visit their distillery and buy bottles from the distillery. There you can you can actually go in and do like a visitor experience and walk out of there with a bottle, so like they're figuring out ways to kind of get around having your product in stores and things like that. So I just see I see more so every company, every brand eventually going directly to consumer. And I also see the consumers kind of driving the marketing. Like the consumers are becoming like the content creators on like TikTok and things like that. Their campaigns are way cooler than anything that the brands can do themselves a lot of times. So I just see that the content creators are going to rise to the forefront and start dictating what's cool and dictating what how marketing looks. So yeah.
Cool. Last couple questions here. Were there moments, you definitely mentioned this slightly on your presentation, were there moments that you wanted to give up on your passion, due to any obstacles, financial, family, things of that, things of those natures? What were some of those challenges you were faced with, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, I did give up. I gave up my passion for art when I went to college. And my family, my parents said there was no money in art. So I went on and became a chemistry major. Believe it or not, I was a chemistry major for a year and a half, and I was going to go on and be a doctor until I came to my senses. I switched over to business, but I only went into business because I did some research, and I was understanding that if you're a creative, You either have to have a manager or you have to have some business savvy. You can't just be in fantasy land. You got to have some type of business savvy if you're going to sustain yourself. So I went into business so that I already knew I was a creative, but I wanted to make sure I had the business acumen to really make the right decisions to not only, once I am able to pursue a job or a business in a creative economy, I was able to, navigate the waters a little bit better. And also I was able to help other people that are creatives that didn't have that business acumen. So that was an example of it. And also recently, 4 years ago, I left Diageo, which is one of the companies he mentioned, where I was working for Ciroc and a few other brands. I kind of started feeling myself getting further away to some degree from my passion. It was too many guardrails to kind of express my passion the way I wanted. It became too corporatized or whatever. I know that's not a word, I just made it up, but it became too, restricted, and just had some family issues I was dealing with. So I ended up, quitting that job and basically leaving and coming to Atlanta. And I came with the intention of being a full-time entrepreneur. And I did very well initially, not very well, but I started to, make money a little bit to sustain myself. And then I ended up taking on a job. Again, I kind of, was back in that trap where I was adulting and, that I mentioned earlier. And I was thinking once I take this job, how am I going to reconnect to my culture and my passion? So I had to go through this entire journey I just went through with you guys. I had to go through that again, 4 or 5 years ago, and figure out a way to make my passions blend with the job that I was taking on and the responsibilities that I had recently assumed. So.
Gotcha. That's very helpful. So how do you feel COVID has impacted people's ability to pursue their passions?
I think COVID has forced everyone to kind of reckon with their uncomfortability. It's kind of, and so it made you become very comfortable being uncomfortable. At least that's where it's leading, because there's uncertainty. No one knows how this is going to end, and no one knows how it's really going to fully impact the economy. So it's forcing everyone to think outside the box. But I think that for the most part, most people go through a dark period where they're their world is shaking up, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to make it. What does this mean for me? It goes back to how will I be affected? And with these changes, what's in it for me? So it allows everybody to kind of stop and do some of that self-questioning that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So I think that it's going to force people to either adjust and pivot, or it's going to burn you out. It's going to make you have to make some hard choices that may take you further away from whatever you were doing before or your passions. But I just, I say this because, for me, it caused a little bit of depression and things like that initially. And so I started to become more focused on, some of these exercises I've been telling you guys about, just to kind of help, figure out, how I can pivot and adjust in this time. Because let's be honest, this is something we can't control. So in a time like this where you're dealing with things you can't control, you have to really streamline your life and control the things that you can control. Focus on your controllables, get them in order. And try to navigate the uncontrollable, but focus on what you can control first. And that, if you can do that, that'll give you a little bit of confidence to weather, the dark period that we're in right now.
Gotcha. Let's see, lots of questions here. What are some of the trends that you see are being created by consumers that you think, is next to kind of blow up?
I think that consumers are figuring out ways to own their own data. They're figuring out ways to for a while, it was just kind of Google and these companies, they take your data, they take your behavior online, and they communicate that to marketers and advertisers. So they kind of know that you're going to be online at 9 o'clock, so they can kind of advertise. They can make sure they get you that, TV, advertising during that time, or whatever it is that they've, been able to identify that's a passion of yours or interest of yours. But now you have companies I forgot the name of it. I know that Issa Rae is a part of this company, but now people are figuring out ways to own their own data, to monetize their own data, their own information. So I think that's what I'm just seeing is just like consumers are taking more control. I'm seeing consumers like hold people accountable in terms of companies on their diversity efforts and stuff like that. I'm seeing people figure out solutions and quickly create companies around those solutions, and figure out problems and quickly create companies around a solution. For example, there's a few people that are starting like delivery services to compete with like the Amazons and compete with like the Drizzlies and other things like that. So I mean, there's just tons. I definitely think there's a lot more people that are, getting into like the augmented reality and stuff like that, because a lot of people are going to be sitting at home for a while. So anything that can feed into home entertainment, I'm starting to see a lot more people get into that, whether it be podcasts, whether it be like augmented reality, figuring out ways to like, allow us to be, better alone together. I'm starting to see that a lot.
Gotcha. And then one last question for myself, and then I will pass it over to Freddie. So advertisers are currently, losing in-store distribution to private label brands. I guess, do you have any insight on, how that can be fixed, more specifically as like the pandemic continues to kind of tighten up the economy and almost forcing the consumers to buy more affordable options? I guess, do you have any insights on, how we can potentially fix that?
Okay, so just want to make sure I answer your question right. So you're talking about like a Colgate toothpaste versus a Walgreens toothpaste. They're choosing the Walgreens toothpaste over the, you're talking about like that type of private label.
Yeah, so basically private label against just, the advertisers.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to obviously a lot of the consumers are making that choice financially because it's a financial, decision, or maybe that brand really hasn't built a strong enough emotional connection to that particular, customer, that is really like no reason for them to stick with that brand, to pay that premium charge. It doesn't give them any type of emotional, boost, or it doesn't fit into their life and advance their life or elevate their life in any way. That becomes very hard for like brands that are commodities, like the toothpaste and things like that. As you start moving up to the brand, hierarchy, when you start thinking about products that have more of an emotional connection, like clothes and, more of a luxury, more of a super premium and luxury products, I think that the brands have to do a better job of restoring that emotional connection that they have to their customer. They may have to do a little bit more personalized marketing, a little bit more, maybe have to find an influencer, someone that can help cut through the clutter and reach directly to that consumer's emotional pinpoints and charges, stuff like that. So maybe they have to start exploring more of the non-traditional route to rekindling that love affair that customer has with their brand. But it's going to take some exercise. And like I said, because it's a little bit more easier for brands that are a little bit more complex than it is for brands that are like more commodities.
So that's great insight. So that is all the questions I have from myself and also the viewers on Twitch. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Freddie. Karim, thank you so much for giving us all this great insight.
No problem. Anytime.
Incredible. Mic check. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So, Karim, I know we've known each other for a long time now. I believe Courtney, Count, Kimball, Tom out of Atlanta, and Lee Farmer. We all were very fortunate to work on the television show Master of the Mix with you. And, obviously the people I just mentioned were on the agency side, but you being on the brand side at that time, and specifically, I was always wanted to ask, what was it, or what type of challenges did you have when, I know we all collaborated on the idea of bringing a television show to life, but when you were having those conversations at Diageo, where you're basically asking the larger global team or the US team or people at the top of the totem pole, hey, give us, $7-8 million because we want to do a TV show that's never been done before. Like, how was that conversation, and what type of what do you think ultimately got Diageo to make such an investment and take such a chance, like produce pretty much a branded content based television show like that at a time where people weren't doing that?
So, I mean, I'm so glad you asked that. I think that the key to most corporations is, in the long run, you took a brand like Smirnoff, which was the brand obviously that I worked on during that time. Smirnoff, at the core, is in the business of selling bottles and not TV shows. So that's never going to change. They still have to answer to their stakeholders, the larger company. They still have to deliver profitability back to the wider company. So, the bigger, I guess, nugget to crack there was figuring out a way that we can still achieve what we tried to achieve, which was pushing the culture, but at the same time delivering back those like more commercial KPIs, like the sales, that would allow us to, have the freedom and the air cover to do all the cool stuff, all the cool shit we wanted to do. So my challenge was more so around figuring out ways to, my challenge was really like falling back and allowing like you guys, which were the creative experts, in culture and in terms of like, I know some of the degree we're all kind of learning together, but let you guys focus on building out the TV show and at its core. And we kind of come in, making sure that we're on brand and on strategy and things like that. But my challenge was more so around, how do I make this make sense to the customer that's watching this? What is going to make them want to like watch this and not just see a cool DJ and make them want to go out and buy a bottle? Instead, also see a cool DJ and immerse themselves into the experience, but also think Smirnoff is the brand for me. So I'm gonna go out and buy Smirnoff at the store. So making that journey very easy for the consumer. So that's why like I focus more of my attention around like making sure that we had listening parties and stuff like that. Not even listening parties, I'm sorry, viewing parties. And this was before there were like viewing parties for Insecure and stuff like that. And that was an area that, no one believed. No one believed that you could like get a club to shut down to watch a TV show that didn't exist before. So that was a challenge of mine, to figure out ways to kind of get people out there to watch the show, buy drinks at the bar, but also watch it at home and want to go out and order Smirnoff to enjoy it at home. So that was more so my challenge. And once we were able to figure that piece out, then whatever, challenges or pushback that we got from executives, it was easy to kind of navigate that because we have an answer for it. So that was more so, my biggest challenge is figuring out how to commercialize the, and I say but it was more so, I was kind of like helping lead that, but I did have a team. It was a director and myself and a few other people, but it wasn't just solely me. But my particular challenge was around that piece, commercializing the idea.
Yeah, and I just a note on that, the party we had with Ron Trent, I think at the end of season 2 in DC, is still in that loft space, is still one of my
that was crazy. That was crazy. That was crazy.
On a personal level.
Yeah, I wish I had to use social media. I wish there was like a stories function back then. It was pretty lit.
A second question, Karim, and I know, I would say in the industry, I think very few people have a real genuine relationship with the people that they work with from an influencer standpoint. I've personally have followed kind of you throughout your career and just seen like early on how you just had these, I don't even know, almost like it was almost like you were, quote unquote brothers with these people like Uncle Scooty in DC and other, major influencers in the DC area that still are aligned with you to this very day. And I see like the work you're doing with Quavo from the Migos and people like that. And what I see in their testimonials is how they kind of claim that partnership with you, which is really unique with brand folks, right? Where they say, hey, Kareem's my guy, X, Y, and Z. Can you tell us like what goes into forming genuine relationships with these people you have partnerships with, and what kind of bridges that relationship between the brand guy and the influencer, and how you have had great success in that category?
I mean, I think it really takes like emotional intelligence, it takes integrity, and it takes patience. And those three things in particular, because it takes integrity, because for me, it's always culture first. So it doesn't matter what company I'm at. And then, no, this could get me fired. I'm always going to put culture over profitability or anything, because for me, the people were there for me before, and they're going to be there for me after. If I was able to let go from a company or fired or quit or whatever, I still got to go back home. I still got to intermingle with the culture and the people, because I am a participant in that culture. So like for me, people know that I'm not a culture vulture. So I always establish this level of trust with them from the beginning, where I listen, I figure out what their long-term visions are. You know, I ask them questions they probably have never been asked in their entire life. I ask them questions about, you know, the core, their passion points, and things I talk about this entire presentation. And I hold them accountable, and I figure out ways within my corporate resources and access to plug them in a way that the brand gets what it needs. The brand gets conversation started about the brand gets relevance, the brand gets its credentials in the culture, this badge of relevance. At the same time, the culture creator can get, resources, whether it's like, financial resources for whatever they're doing, or whether it's like more visibility on the brand channels, or like Master the Mix, when we created that, putting them on TV, things like that. But I always figure out ways to marry the two so that the companies get what they want, but at the same time, never sacrifice culture. I never sacrifice these people's image and their passion and who they are. That's always going to be front and center for me. So I think that I've been burned in some ways doing that, because, obviously I try to see the good in people, and sometimes I don't use discernment. Sometimes I treat people, I invest a lot into people, and they don't always, reciprocate. Like once they get on, sometimes they cut me loose, they cut ties, or, whatever, ego get in the way. But at the same time, it's not going to stop who I am. Like I, will continue on my mission of, pushing the culture forward. Always culture first, man.
Incredible. I have one more question, and I'll send it back out to anyone else that wants to ask some questions. Specifically, and you mentioned earlier, you kind of, explore certain aspects of entrepreneurs. I specifically remember I had a call with you when I was driving around where we were talking about, craft brand theory, and when you went down to Atlanta and you moved away from working for someone else from an agency level and a brand level, right? Mm-hmm. I remember when you mentioned you were going back into the agency world, and then eventually, another agency outside of your own, and then eventually getting back to the brand side with Pernod Ricard. What about Pernod Ricard, Karim, made you go from doing your own thing back into the brand side of things? What about that your specific current company that kind of, got you out of retirement, right? Or pulled you back into the brand side of things? Because I know that, that's something you weren't even looking at. Mm-hmm. I know there had to be something very appealing about that company to kind of get you back into the brand side of things. So just, if you wouldn't mind sharing kind of like what brought you back to work with a company like Pernod Ricard.
I mean, I have a trifold answer for that one. So basically, part of it was fear. I had abandoned the life of entrepreneurship for many years, for like 10 years. So abandoning that, and then going through 10 years of working at Diageo, then Charmer Sunbelt, then the agency, I started to fear feeding myself and taking that journey. So, once I started to jump back in as an entrepreneur, a few bumps in, after being doing that for like roughly a year, I started to have second doubts. So when opportunity like, Pernod Ricard comes along, I jumped on it. And the other piece is it gave me the opportunity to work again with one of my really close friends. One of my close friends, he was the brand director of Martell. I trust him because I usually go with people versus brands. So, and that's important for people to know. Like a lot of people fall in love, but they have an opportunity to build an intimate relationship, like a friendship with the person that's behind the brand. They often buy into that person before they buy into the brand. So I bought into Brian Smith. Like that was my guy. Like I know his integrity. I know his heart. I know what he's trying to do. So I saw him before I saw Martell. So once he called me up and told me, hey, Martell, we're looking to reintroduce the brand to the United States. We have this cool program that we're looking to do. I know your capabilities. I want you to come on board and help me craft this and do this. Help me with the influencer program. I need you to be an influencer. I've never wanted to be an influencer. So he talked me into that, be an influencer, and I trusted him. And then I started to trust and learn and love the brand. So then so that's basically the answer. I forgot the third part, but I would say really just the fear. But then also offset of the fear would be more so me buying into my friend and buying into his vision and buying into the team he built around him, like Della, Yador, Tiki, other people that were there at the time. These are my people. These are my family, and I know them. So it made the transition a little bit easier, to do.
That's great. Thank you. I know some of these questions are a lot when you're working for a brand. You're kind of playing it close. Kind of disclosing a lot. So I appreciate that. I think the Twitch universe, they're very active. They have a couple more questions. So I'm gonna send it back to Mina over at Twitch.
Cool. So I know you said that you did not envision yourself as an influencer, but we had a question on, did you work to build your Instagram following, or was that just something organic that has happened, and how does that impact your brand?
I mean, it's happened organically because I really don't care too much about being an influencer. I still don't. I don't like the concept of influencer because I just think things should happen organically. I'd rather just show and prove. If you see what I'm doing and you find ways to take a little piece of what I'm doing and adds value to your life and you can apply it in some form of fashion, then that's cool. But I'm never gonna call you a follower because I don't like the term followers. I don't like the sheep mentality. I always encourage people to be their own people, to follow their own journey. So I just abandoned the whole idea of influencers, but I want to master that world. So I participate in it because I want to understand. See, for me, it's not about what I think a lot of times. It's about where the culture is, what the culture thinks. And the culture is obsessed with influencers. So think about it, what I mentioned earlier. I'm more of an anthropologist. I want to get into the mind and the psyche of the culture. So I want to understand what it is about influencers that drive and motivate their behavior and motivate you to make the decision to buy this versus that, or to make this trip versus that trip, or to, whatever you decide to do. I want to know, how that influencer, quote unquote influencer, played a role in that. So that's why I participate in it. But I am totally against the concept and the theory of being an influencer. So for me, for my Instagram, I just did what I love. And the fact that people see me doing what I love and I don't really give a shit when anybody think about it, they are drawn to that momentum and that no care attitude. I say things on my Instagram that most people wouldn't say because they'll be scared of getting fired or scared of I don't say things directly to my company. It's not passive. I'm just saying I speak on the culture. I speak on industry. I speak on foul behavior that people do in their lives and things like that I acknowledge, that I address, and I also address my weaknesses and my vulnerabilities as well. Things that I'm not doing, things that I do that's not cool, that I want people to learn from. But I'm very transparent. And see, if you're an influencer, a lot of times you care more about what people think than what's real and what's truthful and what's a fact. So you wouldn't make some of the decisions I make on my Instagram because you'll be concerned about losing followers, so I just don't want to get into that prison where I'm more concerned about how I look versus who I am and how I feel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, people support your realness. So I guess is your strategy just basically posting, about just what you do? Do you engage with, different communities on Instagram, or are people just kind of coming across you from the different things that you've been, involved with?
I think some people come across me through word of mouth. Some people might share some quotes I post. They'll share it on their feeds, and I end up getting some people. And then sometimes they stay, sometimes they don't. But yeah, I think some of that happens more so. What my followers more so come from other people, and I think, than anything that I'm doing. I'm not out there. I never get paid ad spots or anything like that. I don't really promote myself like that. I just started doing things like this again. I used to do this more so, but I'm just starting to do talks and conversations publicly and things like that. I've always been more so behind the scenes. So I'm much more of a bigger fan of being behind the scenes. But I'm just starting to understand that in this world of image, you have to promote yourself. So I'm trying to take some of the lessons I've learned from promoting other companies and other brands and making them billions of dollars. I'm starting to apply some of those strategies and tactics to myself. So that's pretty much all I'm doing. But I'm not like, there really is no strategy behind my personal media, my social media. It really is just me. Like I wake up, this is how I'm feeling. I post it. You know what I'm saying? Like I saw a cool image. I'll post it. So there's really no rhyme or reason or strategy. It's really just what you see from me is real time, like what I care about, what's on my mind.
Gotcha. And then last question here on Twitch. What are some of the resources that you follow to keep yourself aware of trends, whether that's any Facebook pages, Instagram pages, any websites, just to keep up with either industry trends or just, everything that's going on right now?
Well, my Instagram, I've figured it out, figured out the algorithm. So I end up like liking content so I can like shape my explore page. So when I go to my explore page, it has content on there that's fresh and unique that inspires me, that keeps me up the par on like what's cool and what's trendy in technology, in design and art and culture and things like that. So I don't have a lot of like low frequency stuff on my Instagram. It's like usually stuff that's inspiring me. I also look at a lot of Tumblr blogs and stuff like that. I use Tumblr a lot. I'm heavy on LinkedIn, so I would encourage everybody to follow me on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I figured out a way again on LinkedIn to curate my feed so that I'm getting a lot of like stories from like Black Enterprise and Fast Company and all the like tech magazines and bloggers. I'm dialed into a lot of like Instagram groups. So I'm part of those groups, so I get to jump into the conversation and see what they're talking about, see what's on everybody's mind. And I read a lot. I read a lot of books. I just started back reading. I'm not gonna lie and say I'm like I haven't always been a reader like this. When I got into like heavy into corporate America, I just didn't have the time a lot of times, unless I'm on a flight or something like that, to kind of pick up a book. So now I've dedicated more time because I'm writing a book. So since I'm writing a book, I'm reading a book at the same time, reading books at the same time to discuss, to like really refine my voice.
Definitely. I guess specifically within, your industry, do you have specific outlets to get like industry trends or to keep up to date with like the industry trends, not just on social media?
Yeah, I look at like, I forgot the name of these websites, like Spirit News, like Spirit Industry. I look at that. I look at Shanken. I look at like Black Enterprise. I look at I'm a part of different like spirit industry groups on LinkedIn. So it's not necessarily like an actual like publication that I may go to all the time outside of the ones I just mentioned, Spirit Business, also Shanken News. Outside of that, I'm part of these groups that share a lot of like articles that are written about things that affect the spirit industry. Whether it be technology or new entrants into the category or, TV, media, things like that. All these topics are being discussed in these groups. So I kind of like am able to catch an article and things like that from there. But regularly, I'm not really, reading outside of those two I mentioned, a lot of like, spirit-based companies. I don't want to get trapped into just studying the spirits. Like I feel like spirit industry, reading like technology magazines and blogs and stuff like that, to kind of like stay on top of what new technology is coming and how it might like augmented reality, how that's going to impact like, how we engage with consumers, from like brands to consumers and their experience. Like I try to like look at all the surrounding, factors that would impact the spirits industry.
Gotcha. And then just bouncing off, since you mentioned it, when is your book coming out and what is it about? So
my book, just because nowadays I'm learning to like not overcommit and underdeliver. That's something I'm working on. So I can safely say that I am between like finishing up the writing phase and editing and basically rolling out my book. I'm looking to roll it out in fall. I'm looking to roll it out like late November, December, right around the Christmas time, for you guys to get a book and put it in your stockings and all that. So I'm like a little bit behind schedule because I'm a perfectionist. So I decided to like fall back, do some more research on some things and, you know, and I just ended up getting writer's block and just going through my whole little journey of being a writer, first time writer, the fear. And so I just kind of been in my own way, but I just recently recommitted. So now I'm like, you know, halfway through and I'll go through the editing process. The book is about basically almost everything I just talked about here is really about culture marketing. It's more so, I would say, it's more of a Bible for people that are interested in culture marketing, either being a culture creator or they have jobs in professional companies, like, you know, companies they start on their own or 9 to 5 or corporate jobs, how to like lean into culture at the same time deliver the goods back to the company so they can keep their job, but without sacrificing the culture. So it addresses some of these topics that people deal with every day in my book. Some of the learnings I've had. I do a lot of research. I'm a research hog. Like, I love research. I love history. It's going to be a very exciting book. And the thing that you're gonna get from this book is kind of like what I left you with this presentation. You're gonna get like real solutions and real tactics you can apply to your life that'll transform your life. So it's not just about you reading like, okay, that guy Karim is smart and he did some cool shit. Like, nah, it's gonna be like stuff you can take off the page and apply it to your life and transform it. So that's kind of why it's taking a little bit of length of time. I want this to be something that you can use. So yeah.
Amazing. Glad to have got a little sneak peek of it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Freddie, you want to take it over and close us out?
Yeah, I would just say if there's anybody else have a question from the internal team, we have time for one more question.
Freddie, I had a question real quick.
Awesome.
Karim, thank you. Karim, thanks for being here with us. My question is, since you mentioned it earlier about direct-to-consumer kind of taking off a little more, do you mean the consumer kind of making the choice to, you know, purchase directly from like influencers or content creators and individual brands versus going to like the middleman, and what does that mean for companies like the Targets and the Amazons and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I mean, basically, consumers figuring out ways to go directly to the brands, the suppliers of those products that are in those stores. You know, they're going around it. The companies are shipping directly to the consumer, and they're removing the middleman. So it's going to become very difficult for the middle companies to actually, you know, sustain themselves. The middle companies you'll probably see will probably have to figure out unique ways to keep those consumers coming to them. Like, they'll have to probably start figuring out ways to do cool collaborations with the content creators. They'll probably end up figuring out more ways to do private labeling, come up with to create their own products and things like that to kind of give consumers a reason to come there. But I feel like basically that is what I'm seeing. I'm personally seeing content creators create and go directly to the consumer through, you know, sites, their own sites. I mean, even it goes even down to like even the content creators and entrepreneurs. Like, where in the past they may have used like an Etsy or something like that to create a microsite on those sites to sell their stuff. Now they're creating their own websites. You can order directly from their website. People are figuring out ways to cut out as many middle people as possible and get directly to the consumer. So that they're removing layers. So that's kind of what I'm keeping my eye on. There are risks to that. Like, it's not always there are risks. Like, obviously, you get wider distribution and things like that when you work with a bigger company like a Target. So there's sacrifices to like going direct to consumer, and you spending all your money on advertising yourself to create that awareness. Where if you get in the Target, they're advertising themselves and bringing people in the door. So you got this constant foot traffic and constant online traffic. So there's pros and cons to that. And I'm not saying that the shift will stay, where they'll stay direct to consumer and never go back. I'm just saying there's a trend that's happening, and we'll see if it sustains itself, but that's something I'm definitely noticing.
Sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And I can't see myself, so I don't know if I was looking entirely crazy during this presentation. I was picking my nose or anything like that, so I apologize if I offended anyone.
Yeah, I'm not sure at home because I see the Q&A sign.
Okay, good.
Karim, thank you so much for blessing us on this chat. I think, on a personal level, I could probably speak for Lee and myself. I think you're one of the most incredible professionals we've ever had the pleasure to work with. You've always been a straight up guy with us and incredible to work with. And, it's been our pleasure to be, just our pleasure, just have, this relationship with you that put us in the fortunate position to have a call like this with the rest of the team. So I'm really happy that this forum gives us for people to meet people like Karim and other professionals that are just, just a great example of, how to move in the professional space, right? And, I think that we learned a lot today. And, we are, very happy that you made time for us and did this talk with us. So thank you so much from the team here in Chicago, the Chicago Group Collective, to Kimbo Tom Creative Agency in Atlanta, and from everybody who joined us on Twitch. Thank you so much. So we appreciate it. We look forward to your book. We'll make sure to keep a line open for anybody that has additional questions down the road. You can always hit us on our social media. And yeah, man, we'll have this available for everyone that missed it at Twitch TV, twitch.tv/TCG Collective. It'll be up for anybody else that wants to catch it, or anybody who's on right now that wants to share with their friends. And Karim, for anybody who you think it'll be valuable to see, we'll have it at our Twitch site. So thank you so much. Thanks for participating today, and it's been an honor.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I appreciate your attention. Thank you so much. And please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, KarimLateef.com, or LinkedIn. If you have any additional questions, or ask Freddie, he can get it to me, or you can reach out to me directly, direct to creator. but yeah, either way, look forward to engaging with everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time.
All right, y'all. Later, everyone. Peace.
Later.